Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
The #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatscale.ai.
Hello everyone, I'm Tereza, and as I said, I love talking about marketing and football, but I'm going to talk about marketing today and how to keep the human element using AI for content and SEO. So I'm Tereza. I love talking about marketing and simplifying processes. I'm neurodivergent. I do love my processes. And for many years, I felt like a robot. I felt like I'm not fitting in. I'm not really good with emotions. So it's not really a surprise that this was my favorite character on Star Wars. But I felt like I changed my mind the last few years, especially thinking more about automation, how we are and how we're actually different from automation and robots. And the last year, thinking of ChatGPT, how it started, we're all excited, something new is coming in, generative AI is becoming more mainstream. But then it quite quickly turned into something that becomes a little bit scarier. So all the stories, how we might not have a job at some point. So it gets a question, should we get into panic mode? Should we start feeling scared that we won't have a job anytime soon? Actually, I don't think that's the case, at least not yet. And it's more about trying to understand how can we embrace our human strengths? How can we think, where do we stand out, and what that means for everyone, because it could be different for every single person. It's important to think, what are the skills that make me stand out? How can I really make sure that I still have a place in the new world where AI is taking over even more? So imagine, for example, you're in a company for 5 years. You're there forever, you feel like you know what you're doing, and then someone new, probably younger, comes in, and you really feel the need to impress your job and just remind your worth. And that's how I feel about AI. We really need to make sure that we remember what we're doing. We know how we stand out, but we just need to remind everyone. So what makes us unique? What makes us really stand out, especially in a world where automation is taking over? It's the brain. It's making sure that all the skills that make us human, we really go back into understanding what are the things that make us stand out. And some examples could be empathy, creativity, critical thinking, storytelling, intuition, originality. We could just have a long list of them. So it's useful to start thinking, what are the things that I feel personally make me who I am, make me good at my job? So for example, I would pick empathy, critical thinking, storytelling. But again, there are so many things. It's more about having that exercise and think, how can I really stand out? How can I really remember the things that make me who I am? And just as fun, I wanted to ask ChatGPT, what are the things that I do and that you don't? And it was really interesting to see that it was quite accurate, which is really scary, that ChatGPT understands the things that it needs to improve. And it's also funny because it said as of September 2021, which means that maybe they do have the skills now, and we don't know that. But that's another story to be scared of. And then we're thinking, now that we understand the skills that we're really standing out, how can we use AI in a way that works for us, in a way that we understand the processes that make sense for our work? So what's important, and we're going to look at a few use cases, is to understand what's the reason that we want to use AI in our marketing processes. And that could be many different ways. So for example, you can use AI as your thought partner in order to start with brainstorming. You might want to use AI as your analyst to go through a longer part of data. Could be a creator, could be an automation agent. So having that starting point, thinking of the use case, it makes it easier to understand what's the specific reason that I want to use it in my processes, or how can I make sure that I pick the right tool in order to make sense for what I want to do. And we're going to use these examples for use cases to create a few workflows, just a simplified way to think of the different ways to integrate into your marketing processes. So let's start with SEO content planning. You want to start creating new content ideas, so you start by thinking of the keywords. This is a step that you can use AI, but also, again, making sure that you're the one having control, so you can save time, but you always want to have the human element to have that overview. Then you want to do the research. It's a good idea to simplify it as much as possible, get the help for all the tools to help you save time. But of course, you know the keywords, you've done the research, you're the one who wants to prioritize that. So it's about thinking all the different parts of the process. How can you really save time, be more efficient, make the most of AI, but still being the one who has control? So then you prioritize the content. You want to create groups of it. So you create clusters. Again, You can use an automation agent. You want to save time, but you will be the one to have the final saying on the content and what you want to create. So let's use another example. Thinking of the workflow, this is what it would look like, the SEO content planning one, on how to create a streamlined process. So you start the idea, I know what I want to create, I've used the right tools, I want to have a visual way of thinking of that and how it really works. So the second example, it's about content creation and optimization, and that's probably one of the most common cases, especially with ChatGPT and all the other tools. So when you want to create content, you want to save time. So this is a great use and something that we all probably tried on using ChatGPT as the starting point, as beating the blank canvas and just having more ideas. Then you create the content, you want to optimize that. That could be from search optimization, it could be from formatting, publishing. Make sure you save time with the content you create. So that's again a case you could save time with automation. But then you want to make sure that you also have more time for repurposing, and that's another way to make sure, how can I find the right tool that I also have the right ways to use that? And again, you are the one who has the saying, but you can use more tools. So pretty much in this process, it's interesting to see how you can think of the right tools to visualize the process and create something that makes sense for you. So I used some examples of tools here and how that could look like. So you start with creation, you use ChatGPT, you stop because you want to have the quality control. You jump into another tool like SEMrush, you wait, you have control, you publish to WordPress, and then you repurpose the content with Copy AI. So it's just an example of mapping out the tools, the resources, and also the budget on what you need to create and how you can really visualize that to make it easier for you, your team, your stakeholders to understand how they're really are including AI into your processes. And just the third example, this is campaign planning. So you want to plan a campaign, you start with a strategy, and that's the most important step where you definitely want to make sure that you are the one who has the decision. And then you go into the content creation, and as we mentioned earlier, ChatGPT and all the other tools can be great for that part. So you blend the human element with AI. And then there's the launch of a campaign. This is the time when the campaign is ready to go. So you are the one who has the idea of when you want, how you want to make it work, but you can also use automation to save time. And then you can also do A/B testing, and that's another case when we talk about the use cases for AI, when you can really make the most of automation, you can run more results, you can analyze them faster, and you can really get all the different learnings out of that. And visualizing, again, the workflow, it's similar to what we discussed on the previous examples. What do we really need to remember? It's about designing your own workflow. These are some examples and quite simplified ones. But you want to make sure that you find a way that you understand where you are now and how you can really improve your processes. And let's look at some tips, exactly the case, how to make sure that we make AI work for everyone. First of all, start with where you are. You need to review your current processes to make sure that you understand, this is what I'm doing right now, this is where I feel like I can improve it, or this is how I feel like I should bring more tools into the process. So you want to think, how can you simplify what you're working right now? How can you simplify your workflows? What is working? What do you need to improve? And how can you really think the role of AI into your existing processes? So going back into the example of the SEO content planning, so you might start analyzing your process to see what's working. So you might notice, actually, I'm spending quite a lot of time on keyword research. It feels a bit manual. Or I don't have a lot of resources, so I need that support to make sure that I still stay effective. So once you analyze the process and you really see what's working and what you need to improve, it's easier to say, these are the steps that I really want to help from AI and automation in general. So that's when you bring AI on board. So you want to understand, how can I be efficient? How can I really be specific with how I want to use AI? Going back into the agents earlier, you want to make sure that you have objectives. You want to have an idea of how you want to use AI so that you find the right case and the right tool. So you might say, for example, I want to use AI as a thought partner. So I have a clear idea of where is the gap in my process, and I can use a tool like ChatGPT in order to make sure that I am more efficient. Or if you're looking for an analyst, you want to find a different tool. So that saves you time for making sure that you pick the right ones for your use. Obviously, there are too many tools out there, and this is just an example. But having an idea, having a use case in mind, makes it easier to understand, how can I be more specific? It's very tempting to try all the different tools. I love doing that. At the end, you just end up wasting time. So you want to make sure that you stay efficient. And when you want to create the processes, that you really focus on the ones that make more sense for you. And the next one, you know where you need to improve your processes, you pick the tools, it's time to train yourself and the team. So by training, we mean, first of all, understanding how generative AI works, and that could be some lessons. There are many courses from Google, for example, from LinkedIn, and so many others out there. So that gives you the general idea. But then you also want to understand the tools that you actually start using. So you want to train yourself and the team in order to be better at prompt engineering, in order to be able to make the most of the tools that you start using. So then you feel more comfortable. You feel that you have an idea of how you're using all the tools. And it's time to train your robots. I always wanted to say that. And what do you want to do? So you pick the tools. You really want to make sure that they work for you. So you want to train them and get them to understand your tone of voice, your personality, your target audience. So this needs practice. This needs some time at the start. And it's really important to just keep practicing in the sense of making sure that you really get into a stage that you feel more efficient. It won't work straight in from the first time, but the more effort you put in there, the easier it becomes. So it's really important to make sure that you really get to the stage that you train all the tools that you're using. So then the one we also mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you use your critical thinking. This is the part where you really want to look, how can I use AI? How can I use, for example, AI as an automation agent or looking at data. I am the one still adding context to that. So I need to be able to review and do that quality control in the end. Because at the end of the day, we're not there in a stage where AI knows more than we do, especially for our audience, for our messaging, and the content that we want to create. So you're the one who understands that psychology or how you really want to approach your audience. You can have it as a starting point, you can have them as a thought partner, but you will be the one to have the decision. So it's always important to have that quality control and make sure that you have it as part of your process in many stages. So speaking of use cases, let's look at some ideas of different tools. Of course, there are too many out there, but this is more as an example to think of how we can use AI in many different ways. So obvious one, ChatGPT. How many of you have used it at least once? Most of you, makes sense. And whether it's about playing around or just using it for specific use cases, it's always a good starting point. Another one that I started using more lately is Claude. I found it easier in terms of understanding the content or getting better results, but they're similar. They're helpful for content ideation. More use cases and more tools. There's Copymatic and many others on repurposing content. So that's the use case of saving time. You want to make sure that you start with one piece of content and you create many others. And again, you are the one who has the final quality control on how the content outputs look like. You might want to explore something different if you want brainstorming, if you want something like mind mapping. So Cascade is one of the examples. And again, it's a really good starting point if you want a thought partner for AI. More tools, and this one is actually really interesting as a concept, and I'd love to try that more. So it's on creating AI workflows. What we looked at the manual process of creating your processes and workflows. This is something that's more automated, that's having one tool in one place. So ContentBot helps you bring all the different tools and all the journeys that you have and add them all in. So it's more of thinking, whether I do it manually or through a tool, how can I bring automation into my processes? And Similar AI is one of the many SEO tools where they bring automation. So this is about bringing tools like ChatGPT into your SEO processes. Rather than go to ChatGPT, search for keyword ideas, go and implement it into your website, you can use a tool like that. You find the ideas, and then with a few clicks, you also implement it into your website. And keyword research also, there are many out there. So this one is Surfer SEO. It really helps you to save time. It's a really easy way to just explore more ideas, explore more keywords. And I definitely enjoy using that to save time and be more efficient. Then there are more tools. There is Blue Willow and many others for ad generation. And some of them, of course, there's a conversation on copyrights, but that's another story on how that goes with AI. Similar with video, there is Synthesia and many others if you want to save time, create videos, and just improve your website content. And the last one is also a personal favorite of mine. It's very different from the others, but it's always useful if you want to break down more tasks. This is called Magic To Do. So you might just add the phrase keyword research, and then just like that, it creates a whole process of all the steps of what you need to do. So whether it's about creating a new recipe, or if you just want to help yourself in like your day-to-day tasks, it's definitely a good idea to just see how automation can really help you and feel more efficient. So some takeaways, and what do we want to keep out of all the conversation on blending the human element with AI? There are three things. We definitely want to make sure we start by mapping out our strengths, see what we want to do, how our processes look like, and what are the things that we really feel that makes us stand out. So that could be on a personal level, it could also be on your team, on your company, just to understand what works right now and what you can improve. Then once you know the things that you want to improve, it's time to find the right tools. So then you want to think, how can I use the right use cases in order to understand how I want to use AI? And then you know your strengths, you know the things you want to improve, you found the tools, it's time to build your own processes. Look at what's working right now, look at what you need to improve, and start implementing that more and try different ideas. It's definitely not something that you will get perfect from the first time, but you want to iterate on the process. Just keep experimenting how you can really improve that and feel more efficient in the end. And back to the question, should we really panic about AI and what's coming up next? Probably not, if we are prepared. So we just need to remember this is a time now where we really want to understand that, because of course AI is not going anywhere. So we want to make sure that we are trained as much as possible in a way of understanding how we can make the most of it and how we can still be useful. Again, thinking of being that employee 5 years in the same company and how we can still be there for the next 5 or 10 years. Thank you very much.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.